Time and time again, I'll say, and the natural hygienists, the orthopathic specialists will say, can you eat it without seasoning? Can you eat it raw? Would it be easy to obtain it? And is there practically no preparation in eating it, other than perhaps opening a shell? These are the questions one should be asking, because I just did a consultation with a Filipino mother, and she kept, circling back to, what about farm-raised chicken or farm-raised eggs? And it's like, can you eat these things, or fish, right? Can you eat these things without seasoning? Or are you eating these things, dipping it in vinegar, dipping it in wasabi, dipping it in salt, right? And are you preparing anything at all? Like in the case of the chicken, are you just eating the chicken whole with the feathers, with the bones, and the flesh? Or the egg, are you eating the shell as well? Because when you look at a dog or a fox or, or a cat, they're not leaving things out. They're not pricking all the feathers, making it, for hours on end, picking all these feathers and then cutting it into nice slices and then cooking it and putting all this energy into it. They're not doing these things. At the same time, for fish as well, I think fish is the closest argument for something that's not in our species-specific diet but can be eaten raw. But I've never liked the taste of fish. I guess some people like the taste of sushi. I don't know. It's horrible. I've had a horrible experience eating a California roll a long time ago, and throwing up, diarrhea, all the rest. So I personally, want to throw up the moment I taste anything similar to the taste of fish. I mean, the one thing I could do was shrimp. Did I do that raw, or did they cook it? I don't know. But anyhow, that's a long time ago. Point being is, a lot of these things, most of these things, I mean, even rice, any kind of meat, you need to season it, cook it, prepare it. You got to do so many extra processes. Whereas we can then bring to contention 2 points, right? To why something like a fruit or a vegetable or a nut or a seed is superior. Because fruit, I think, is the best argument, right? Because when you harvest it, unlike rice or unlike some animal bum, it doesn't take a lot of energy to obtain it, right? The fruit tree grows and the fruit drops, so eventually you could pick it up off the ground, or before it drops you could pick it off the tree. So perhaps the most effort is climbing. That's the most that could, or picking it with a long stick or something like that, right? Something of this sort, which is very capable, and something a human being can do, is very capable of, and also encourages kind of healthy movement, right? Whereas we juxtapose that with a human running after a chicken, grabbing it with its clawless hands, and then biting into it from the back, with all the feathers in the mouth. That's disgusting. You don't salivate at the sight of a chicken. I mean, bring it to a child again. A child does not salivate at the sight of a chicken. It would probably think it's its friend, because innately, inherently, we're like protectors, and we want to love everything, and anything that's cute and not as strong as us, we have this innate tendency to want to look after it. So, and then same goes for like a stalk of rice. A kid isn't going to look at this blade of grass and look and go, those hard seeds inside of it must look tasty. I mean, even an adult doesn't see that. The adult immediately pictures the rice that's gone through all these different kinds of processes to be able to eat. Whereas if you were a bird, you could just go and eat that thing right off the frickin' blade of grass. Those seeds in that rice. So think about that. Think about the difference of energy it takes to recover this food or obtain this food. Then we have the energy that it takes to digest the food. But before we go into digestion, let's talk about grains versus fruit, because grains, it also takes a lot of energy to replant this food every year. Then we have the energy it takes to spray the pesticides and the fertilizers, because oftentimes with grains, the soil quality is getting worse. And note that one acreage, out of the same acreage, you get to get one serving of beef, you get 40 servings of fruit. And I don't know how they exactly calculate that, but I'm sure it gets more and more heavier on the fruit side as the tree, like imagine there's a 50-year-old mango tree versus that amount of space being used for cattle, or 50 mango trees, and then that 50 mango tree space being used for cattle, who's grazing on the grass all this time, and then at the same while hardening the soil, and then eventually, since they keep eating the grass, destroy the soil. Similarly, with the grain, I was mentioning the energy that it takes to plant it, to pesticide it, to bend over backwards and harvest it to the point where you see Korean grandmas. I mean, obviously they're not eating the best too, because again, they're eating mostly these grains with these, U-shaped or N-shaped, lowercase N-shaped backs, just completely bent over backwards, or forwards, I should say, because their organism is getting more acidic, and at the same time they're having to bend over to harvest the rice, whereas they could be climbing a tree and doing yoga, or just reach up into the sky, right? Because we are the animals that should be eating from higher sources, figuratively and literally, right? But no, they succumb to societal programming and this industrial scientific revolution that has really took a toll on our health. It's the introduction of grains that have really been hurting mankind. Grains and this idea that we can eat something that's not in our species-specific diet, like meat, for example. So there's that. And then the second part we can argue is the amount of energy it takes to digest. So not only is fruit hydrating you, most fruits, unless they're like a dried date or something like that, not only are they significantly better of an option for hydration because they have this alkaline structured water that's organic, unlike inorganic water, they are, they give you much energy than it takes to digest them. Whereas meat is the opposite. It takes more energy to digest the meat. That's why all these carnivores are super tired, and a lot of their systems, they push out the meat very quickly with high acidic, bodies that can really digest what's going through very quick. Whereas human beings, we have the length of this alimentary system is oftentimes lesser than an herbivore and longer than an omnivore. The omnivore being the last stage at which meat should, an organism that can handle meat. So the amount of energy that the food gives and that the food takes away is a huge factor that you can also talk about when it comes to talking about, these other inferior food classes like, grains and meat. Significantly, it takes more energy, to the point where grains, it creates such an acidic environment with all these sulfuric compounds and these, what else? Carbonic acid, and there's three main acidic things. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but sulfur, phosphorus, and something else, carbonic acid, something like that, that's created. And then, when you're ingesting these acidic substances like grains, and so then suddenly you need to be able to neutralize these heavy acids that are being created in the body, so it leaches calcium from your teeth and your bones. So the same with milk, right? So you're eventually ending up, leaching the calcium from your teeth and your bones. I mean, Jesus Christ, how much more do you want to damage the body till you realize there are things that are in our diet and there are things that are out of our diet? So I just wanted to make a short video to reiterate that, because that seemed like a consistent topic of discussion when I'm giving consultations to people that are accustomed to, the diet I used to be accustomed to, which was lots of grains, lots of meats, and lots of cooked and processed food. So there's that.